Welcome to the Once a Cowboy, Always a Cowboy podcast, where you hear the history of Chaney football from the unique perspective of Coach Ron Berdis. Ed decides to, after 16 years, transition out. What was that decision like? Was that kind of a tough thing for him, or did you?
I there's no question. In Ed's, not only is he winning, but he's getting kids in good, solid scholarships. He's getting a lot of kids in school, and granted, good. Outstanding players. When you're talking about Kavanaugh's and De Niro and Gary De Niro and Gary Stelter and Danny Mancuso and Matt Kavanaugh and the Calcagnis and on and on. And the Pelusi's. There's some really good football players coming out and getting good scholarships. And then towards the end of his tenure, things kind of leaned out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Those great players. There were still some very good players, but I think there was an enrollment decline.
Yeah.
And Red was retiring, okay, and he was the AD, and he passed the torch to Ed, and Ed got out to become the athletic director.
I gotcha.
So, that left the Chaney job open. And in fairness to Ed, he wasn't in the same position as Red was to name whoever he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be an interview process. Yeah. And, and there was, because he had loyalties to John Kopp and myself and a few other guys. So, I don't think he was in a position to handpick anybody at the end of his tenure. So it went through the interviewing process, and fortunately, is neutral. I think Ed stayed neutral in it, but Red stepped to the plate, and I think Red said, "This is a no-brainer. We want to keep this in the family. This is who we want."
We're meaning you, right? Bringing you in.
Yeah.
And so that's gonna lead us to our next process, and I guess the question for me is there, and you answered it a little bit. Was this a coveted job? Were there a lot of people who were interested in taking over this program, or was it a situation where it's next man up?
No, I think it was I think Chaney rested on its laurels, so to speak. I think Chaney had great reputation, and again, the population was declining, and we weren't getting maybe the same caliber of athletes. And now, as I say this, I don't want to be unassuming in the very facts that intra-district open enrollment became assisted Chaney. It did. It helped us because kids now were able to pick where they wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so, we were getting some kids from, the South Side,
mm-hmm.
And how the districting went and the how it was broken up and all that, I don't know. But there were a number of people that, in answer to your question, there were a number of people that interviewed for the job, and when we got it, we knew that we had some work ahead of us, we rolled up our sleeves and said, we were up for the task, and I was fortunate enough to have a great staff to begin with, and if there were shortcomings at the beginning, which there were, it believe me, it was all on me growing into a position. Mm-hmm. It was all about getting my legs under me. You come in, you think, I got college experience. I'm gonna change the world, and if there's a way to beat someone, we'll figure it out. And it's just not that way. That.
I remember you saying to me one time at the start of your career, it was, give me a can of chew and 3 films and I'll figure a way out to win the game.
And that's a fact. That was my mindset. Absolutely. And it just goes to show you how naive I was. It was because of experienced people like your Uncle Red and Mike Dobrin, that kind of grounded me and made me realize, hey, you're not going to do this yourself. Yeah. This isn't going to happen. This is going to be this is a team project. And once we settled into that and became comfortable with each other, I think, things started to pay.
So, you kind of addressed one of the questions I had, which was your mindset at the beginning of your tenure. The other thing I was thinking about was, the whole conversations that we've had. It talks about how ingrained you were and are in the Chaney community. Sometimes going into that position that you're just taking over as head coach, that could be a real blessing or that could be a curse. How were you received at the start?
Well, I think before we played a game, before we opened with Fitch, I think, I might have been viewed by some as the fair-haired boy that, it comes home to roost and everything's good. Then when things aren't going so well, some of those same people that might have been patting you on the back that Red talked about so eloquently were the ones that are saying, you're going to yell at them some more, Berdis, or whatever they say, And this is another Redism. Red would say, hey, Ron, he told me this a long time ago, I think when I was a player. He said, they pay their $250, whatever a ticket costs then, and that gives them the right to say whatever they want, So I'm guessing he was a big First Amendment guy. Yeah.
There you go.
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, when we struggled, those first 3 years, there was a lot of doubters, and we got some mail and all anonymous, but that had their suggestions, and had some people that come up and tried to give some suggestions, and my answer was always pat to them. Listen, I won't tell you how to build a Chevy, out of GM. Don't tell me how to coach football. So that's how it was. But I can feel your next question being, when did we think that we had it going?
Mm-hmm.
And it's ironic that you asked that, because I was just thinking about that the other day, and it was the year we were 1-9 that I could see, not only from us being in games and playing Steubenville 3-0 down there, losing to them 3-0, but I can just tell that those guys that were sitting in the locker room after a game, looking at me with wet eyes, saying, "What do we have to do?"
Yeah.
Those guys were now feeling a lot better about the mountain that they were starting to climb, and being able to see the top, and you could see that excitedness in them, and that's it was that year. It was with that would have been 89.
Yep, 89. So you start in 87, go 2-7, 2-8, 1-9, 5-5, and then 1991 you go 9-2, and you have your first playoff appearance, and that was to Steubenville. And we were talking about this the other day. It was 20-12, so it was a little closer than what you thought.
Yeah.
And from there, it takes off. The program. So it's just funny, right? So doing some homework. We'll just do this little segue. I was going to say this at a different time, but over your tenure, if you look back at the giant West Side Saga book, okay, they do this statistical breakdown of the greatest Chaney teams and so on, and so in 2000 that was statistically the greatest Chaney team. The 10-0 undefeated AP state champs, okay, 28 plus point win differential, and the worst statistical team is the team that you're saying is the one that let me know, hey, we're going to get this thing right. And so no disrespect, not that that's the worst team, but they gave up they scored 9 points a game and gave up 16. I mean, that's some staunch defense.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny that where people think you're at your lowest, you're thinking, hey, we got it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, probably that year was during a scrimmage. We had a scrimmage in the back at Chaney, and I want to say it was against St. V's. But I remember, and I can't remember who it was, but one of our backs broke off a run, and it was a routine play, and I thought, wow, okay, it wasn't, hitting the line of scrimmage and being a pile up. I mean,
right.
He broke some tackles and made a run, and thinking, yeah, okay, this is the right direction, and I couldn't talk about that being a transition period without mentioning Matt Gilchrist, because he was the horse. I mean, he was my first, and I want to say my only ever ninth grade player that I brought up as a ninth grader. Even Keelan, I didn't do that.
I think maybe he did. I think maybe not to start the year, but I think he was in. We'll have to look into that. But
yeah, and you got, and I say that because I remember a conversation with Keelan when he was crying, but I thought that was when he was a sophomore, but maybe it was when he was in ninth grade. Then he would have been the second one. Keelan was crying after practice, and I said, "You got to make a decision right now. Are you ready for this or not? Because I'll put you down with the ninth grade." Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because I told him that. I said, "You should be playing with the ninth grade. That's how, you could really help him. And if you're not ready, you're not ready." And he said that he was. So
because I think he played guard, then sophomore year went to tackle, and then his last 2 years he was playing tight end.
I think you're right on the money on that. But Matt Gilchrist, like I said, he was the first city championship that we won. We beat Rain, and if you want to talk about that was a game in itself.
Yeah, you can go into that. My only other piece there was just maybe talk about your first win, your first city title, first playoff berth.
Yeah, my first win was ironically where I did my student teaching. It was at West Branch, at West Branch, and the star of that show was none other than Matt Gilchrist. I mean, he broke a screen and had some runs with that was our first win, and we ended up with maybe beating Rain also that year for 2 wins, and then the following year we beat West Branch again. I mean, and they were really good. I mean, they were a really good football team, and but that's when we were going and playing, like I said, Steubenville, and losing 3-0.
Yeah,
you know, and Reno, who's still there, you know, was like, you know, I really don't care to play you. I mean, and that's a fact. He said that we're coming down there and playing their tail off. And as a matter of fact, the game we lost 3-0. It was towards the end of the game, and who else? We threw like a curl to Matt Gilchrist, and he had both hands under it, and it would have been first and goal on the 4. Okay, and I'm pretty confident we'd have powered it in, but we brought down an official who was the side judge.
Okay,
and the Steubenville crew were marking first and goal on the 4. The guy we brought down comes, waves it off, says no, you trapped it. So
you did it to yourself.
Yeah,
Reno didn't do it to you. You did it to yourself.
No. Yeah, it was some interesting ordeals down there, but that's for another day.
First city title.
First city title was an afternoon game, 1990, windy, at YSU, and I want to say right around noon, because Brian Terleski, who was one of our players at the time, his sister had passed away that week of cancer. She had cancer, and we went as a team that morning before the game and you know, buried her. I mean, we went there for the funeral and then went straight to the game. It was a back and forth game, and it came down to they had the wind in the fourth quarter, but we had the ball, and it was we needed to just keep it away from them. Okay, So we needed to get some first downs. So we just got in the one back, black trips, and start running toss to Mac. And said, and he just chiseled out like 3 first downs, and we were city champions. We beat Rain, and they had a really good football team then, and it was as good a win as I had, and we went back to everybody went back to my house, and we celebrated.
Yeah. Is that the wedding champagne?
No, that was Well, that was part of it, and that's when Coach Popio was throwing. I had these huge pines in front of my house, and he was throwing rolls of toilet paper because the cheerleaders came and toilet paper the house after the. And like I said, everybody was there. Coaches and their wives were there, and they started. And Pope came out, and he started helping them,
teaching them the technique.
Teaching them the technique. Yeah.
So you talked about what the first city title was 91, right?
No, 90.
90. Okay. So the 80s were tough on the Cowboys.
We had 5 wins in 3 years.
Yeah, right. And so before that, the 80s, 33 and 62. And then you start winning some games. You win your first city title, and you never look back. From 1990 to 2004, 116 and 41. From 1990 to 2004, that 15-year period, 116 and 41 with many playoff berths, all city titles except for one during that time period.
Yeah, the one year that we didn't win the city, we were state runners-up.
Yeah, right. I'm sure we'll definitely talk about that. So, at that point, you start getting it going, and then you have your first playoff appearance. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, no question. We were, and again, I'm not going to discount those guys, the Paul Amongis, the Chris Samrones, the Matt Gilchrist, the guys that paved the way for the successes that we as a program had. And I said this at every banquet that we ever had. Those guys were the ones that threw themselves over the barbed wire fence so that the next regiment can advance.
Yeah.
Those very guys, Lamongi and that crew, Dickie Snyder and Brian Frank. When we lost the state championship in '97, afterwards I was committed to going to my wife's reunion, a Chaney reunion, and she gave me an out. She said, "You don't have to go. I know you're down and everything." I said, "No, we'll go." And I kind of moped around and let her enjoy herself as much as she could. But afterwards, we were coming out of I think it was at Stambaugh Auditorium. I ran into that very crew. They were out and about, and they picked my chin up off the ground. I mean, and we reminisced, and that was just so typical that Borak and all those guys. That was really a special crew. But yeah, those guys all paved the way. And in '91, that took off. We would always open with Fitch, Boardman, and Camel, I think, and felt that if we could win 2 out of 3 of those, and especially if we can get that opener, and Fitch was a tough get. I mean, it was even when we struggled at the beginning, we had some close games. We lost 7-0, 14-7, but in '91. Mark Heron broke a punt return to win it, and no, I stand corrected. In '91, that was when Ricky Havrilla dumped off to Sylvester Patton as a valve, and he took it the distance to win it.
To beat Fitch.
Yeah. In '92, Heron broke one, maybe 2 punts.
Okay.
That was the difference in that game, and both games I think were certainly a shock to Fitch, but getting back to '91, that really set the tone for that year. We lost a heartbreaker. Our only loss that year, before we lost to Steubenville in the playoffs, was to Benedictine.
Okay.
And we were without one of our tailbacks, and we tied the game late, and Sylvester Patton was the tailback, and we ended up getting beat right at the end. They threw a long pass, and we lost that game. But we were 9-1 going into the Steubenville game, and Steubenville was ranked probably in the top 3, 5 for sure in the state, and we went and we played them tough. Was the last game that my father ever saw before he passed, but yeah, it was a really an excitable year, because the kids got all kind of honors, and deservingly so. And then that opened up '92, same type of deal. Started with the Fitch win and Boardman win, and then not sure who we lost to that year. I don't know if I know we got beat by Louisville in the playoffs.
Yeah, right. So you go 10-2 that year.
Yeah, we go
9-1 regular season.
Yeah, 10-2. Yeah, because we beat Akron Buchtel, who was defending state champions 2 times in a row, 2 years in a row, going for a three-peat. We play them in the snow at Harding, and really take control of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was eerie, because they were in all black jerseys, black pants, black helmets, and it was cold. It was really cold, but it was dry.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the year prior, my father had passed, and I remember before I even gave my pregame, looking up and saying, "Dad, if you have any pool and you could make it snow, really would help us neutralize some of this speed. Not that we were slow, but would just even the playing field a little bit with their size and their speed. And on cue, when we took the field, the skies opened up and it started to snow. The snow field got covered, and we threw quick screen to Mark Heron early, and he took it home. And then in the second half, Sylvester Patton took control of the game, just running ISO and toss.
Yeah, and so that's your first playoff win. How did that feel?
That was phenomenal. I remember asking the kids before the game, did you ever dream? Did you ever think that you would be here? Did you ever think you would be in this position? And none of them did. And I said, but how many of you dreamt about it? And they all did. And so it was a dream come true for them. I mean, it was, and they deserved it because they really played their tail off. I mean, it was a great win.
Can you talk a little bit about your staff through the years? You were there for so long, and I think one of the things that people, head coaches struggle with is having guys on staff or keeping guys on staff. Can you talk about your staff throughout the years?
I've been unbelievably blessed. And that can be considered a common cliche in coaching terms, but the facts are the facts. I mean, to start the program with Red Saunders and Mike Dobrin and the Gesslers, Bobby and Jeff, and have Bill Miller and Al Mikovich volunteering their time initially, and then and just building off of that group, and getting Mike Popio and yourself, and I'm sure I'm leaving out some obvious guys, Dan Cipriano and Matt Gurneri, and help me out here.
Steve
Zielinski.
Yeah.
There was no one that I've had over the years, and I never liked to say these guys coached for me, or these guys were one of my assistants. It was always about us coaching together, and I think that's what I tried to do as a head coach. I think, and if I did anything good, it was being able to mesh multiple personalities.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Vivacqua and Chuck Samrone, Dr. Samrone, coached for me, with me, I think the job of a head coach is to coach your coaches. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to be able to coach your coaches and give them the benefits of the experiences that you've had and have been taught by other mentors, so it was always Paul Lamanji, who's gone on to Nebraska and won a couple state championships himself up there, who just got a new position, took over a new team. We enjoyed being around because we spent an awful lot of time together.
Yeah.
And it was an enjoyable experience. And when I ask you, and when I ask Pope, and when I ask Mick or Bill Mills, is it the same, or was that like one of the best experiences that we've had? And it's always you know. I'm most proud of I'm certainly proud of every player that's come through our program, but I'm proud of the guys that I worked with over the years and the relationships that we've developed.
Yeah, and from a personal standpoint, it's I think the example, if you look at a lot of the names that you just mentioned, a number of those guys went on to be head coaches, right? And I think that's because of the culture that you created, the leadership that you allowed and developed in them, and them wanting to replicate that, right? The highest form of flattery is imitation. Yeah. And so I guess the point is that you created an environment, a program, relationships that helped other people flourish and want to go out and pursue those same experiences. And to hit your point of, it was just a really special time, I think, for everybody. And even though you go out and try and replicate that or create that for another group, it never happened. And it was just the time, the place, and the circumstances that and the environment that you were able to create that did that for the coaches and the players.
Well, I'd be absolutely remiss if I didn't mention Joe Wilson and his son, Joe Wilson. Two major contributors to the program over the years. The fact that that's the downside of being a coach, a head coach, I think is when you lose guys, when guys go on, but you try to procure that, you try to broker that, if you will, that's what they aspire to do.
Yeah.
I know guys that have come to me and have said, "Well, do you think I'm ready?" And if I didn't think they were ready, I'd tell them, and it wouldn't be a selfish motive. It would be, that's what I thought, and I'd tell them that. But what matters, and I would always end it, what matters more, do you think you're ready? Because if you're questioning that, then maybe you're not. So, yeah, it's always nice to see guys that you worked with, that you coached with, that you're friends with, go on and branch out and take on programs of their own.
Yeah, and there, I haven't counted them, but just off the top of my head, I can think of a number that you do have, and we can talk about this at some point when we can name names and accurately. But there's been a lot of guys from your staff that have gone on and had tenure, some successful, some a little less successful, but nonetheless, to be able to go and have that leadership, and it's certainly for me. I went and I did it, and it didn't work out the way I'd hoped. But those principles and those core values and all those things that you gave then went to the kids that I had an opportunity to work with. So it really starts to branch out, and the lives that get touched by, just the Chaney experience, 2 undefeated teams, in your tenure, 1996 and 2000, state championship run, and I think that's probably a conversation in and of itself. But maybe you could just scratch the surface on a couple of those undefeated teams, maybe briefly talk about a state championship run and what that was like.
Yeah, the two teams that were 10-0 regular season both ended, obviously when they end, but very unfortunately, I think. The 96 team, which was a real special group, but they're all special, we played Canfield in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the mud at Fitch. Fitch was natural grass then, and it was a swamp. I mean, it rained for 2 days, and it rained all day, all through the game. We jump out 18-0.
Okay.
And feeling pretty good. And to this day, Ed was the AD then. He said that, and I don't know if this was a difference, that they had illegal cleats on.
Okay.
They had mutters on. And because their tailback took control of the game in the second half. I mean, he...
Who was that?
If you say his name.
Was it Panunzio? Was it something like that?
No, it wasn't Panunzio. But he...
I can't remember.
I know they had a West Sider playing on that team. His son. No. I'm at a blank there, but the tailback, Tony Ross was the coach.
Okay.
And the tailback we just couldn't stop him. But I mean, you go in, you're up 18-0 in mud, and you
feel
pretty good.
Yeah.
So we end up losing 21-18.
Wow. Did you get letters or somebody give you suggestions after that game?
Yeah, I did a kicker.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was extremely tough to handle because we thought we could really make some noise. And I think they won the following week, and then they lost. So they would have won the regional championship, and then then they lost the following week. But yeah, that was a tough one. And then 2000, with that's the year we had Brad Smith and a host of
great players.
Other great players.
Yeah.
We finished 10-0. Associated Press state champions, and we're going to play Niles, and they're filling Youngstown up.
Yeah, they moved it to YSU.
Yeah. And I remember John Toyo telling me that he just saw the cars kept coming, from the press box. He could see the lights of the cars. It was an unbelievable crowd, electric.
Because they were 9-1. They were 9-1 that year. They were 9-0. Went down to Steubenville, got upset.
Yeah.
So that's when we end up playing, and they moved to YSU. There too, we were. They did a great job defensively. The former Ursuline coach, Kemp. Larry Kemp.
Larry Kemp was their DC. And he had a good game plan. I mean, we were hard to defend, and not many people were able to, but we were struggling. But it was a close game, and we were down 7 with time running out.
Yeah.
And we pulled a double reverse pass. down to the 3, punched it in.
Yes.
And tie it up, put it in overtime. And they score on their first possession and kicked the extra point. We ran boot keep with Brad and got down, scored on our first possession, and we missed the extra point. My first thought was with our kicker, who put us in overtime, and the goalposts were a bit narrower because of Youngstown.
Yeah.
He just missed it. But that was my first concern was, hey, we didn't lose this game because you missed the extra point.
Yeah.
We just didn't play well enough to win. But that was a hard one to take.
Yeah, and I think I'd have to look this up, but I'm pretty sure that Niles ends up winning the next game the very same way. They go into overtime, they make the kick, and then Avon, Olmsted Falls, something like that. They missed the extra point in overtime. They win the same way 2 weeks in a row, which just unbelievable, right? Just unbelievable. Yeah. Somebody's living right on that staff.
Bill Boring was the coach.
Yes.
And he's still at it. God bless him.
Just got his 300th?
Yeah.
300th win. And then just the state run, just briefly, just talk about. So 96, you're 10-0, finish with a huge upset. Then you go into what has to just be one of the, athletically, one of the greatest experiences that a high school football coach can go through.
Yeah, it really was. And I told you this earlier that 97, those 3 losses that we had in 97 is 3 of the toughest out of all the losses, 3 of the toughest ones. I mean, we lose to Boardman early in the year, up 25-7 going into the third quarter, and they scored once, and we're up 13 with around 6 minutes to go, and end up losing.
Wow.
But turn the ball over. I mean, they played well enough to win. We did not. But it was a tough. But I remember telling the guys afterwards that you got beat by a good football team that you should have won, that you should have beat easily. But we just didn't play well enough. And then we get beat for the first time in 8 years against East. And there, too, we're playing uncharacteristically bad. I mean, and we got a who's who of players there. I mean, we got Darnell Emanuel, the Floyd brothers, Ollie Hightower, Troy Cochran, Lotto, Bugsovich. Carmen Farina, Jason Four.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had some really good players, and my apologies to names that I left off. That's why I don't like to throw names out. But anyway, when we got beat by East, we just weren't playing well enough, but we had the ball. We're going down, and I think we were down 4, and we just start packing it up and running ISO and dive and bang and bang. And we're down on the 3, and it's just a matter of time that we get in. We fumble, they pick it up and take it the distance, 97 yards.
Really?
So, we don't get our 7, and we're down another 7. But I take that back. We weren't down at that time. We were going to just put the game away.
Okay.
Okay, so there's this differential of them going down or them taking it the distance. So we're now down, and but we can win with the score. So we were unfazed. We go right down the field, just throwing quick screen to Anthony and letting him create. I mean, just quick screen, occasional toss or ISO, but take it right down. Time's running out. We get 3 shots at the end zone from the 8.
Okay. Don't get it.
And we're at my kids. Gosh, I had to spend the night consoling them both. Their jaws were down farther than mine because they just weren't used to that.
Yeah, right. First time in a long time you lost.
Yeah. Anyway, very, very tough loss. And we end up that year getting ready to pack up the gear.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going into Hubbard, who's undefeated. Hubbard's 9-0. And we go into Hubbard on Halloween and think that there's an outside shot that we can get in the playoffs if we get them. We got 2 losses under our belt. Outside shot to if we can get Hubbard. Well, Jeff Bayek was the coach then, and we just go there and play the best football game that we could possibly play.
Really?
And shut them out. I'm pretty sure it was 25-0. Everything clicked, and we sneak in. We sneak in and we draw the number 1 team in the state in Minerva at Salem, play them in the rain, throw the ball like it's sunny and 80. I mean, Antoine had a day in Anthony, and we beat Minerva pretty good down in Salem. And who do we get the next round? We get East for the regional championship rematch, and go there and not playing well, but we get 2 breaks early. He fumbles going into the end zone twice. Twice. We dodged 2 bullets there, and then in the second half, we kind of took control of the game. I shouldn't say the second half. In the fourth quarter, we took control of the game, and ended up beating them, winning the regional championship, and drawing Walsh Jesuit, who's got a Notre Dame fullback and a scat back that was all Ohio Division III first team. And we upset them. We beat them 13-7, and it was a rainy, cold night, and all of a sudden we're headed to the state championship. And who do we drive but another Catholic school in Columbus, DeSales, and they have tradition like we do, only they've won a number of state championships, and they have a really good football team. And we're going to go there and see what happens.
Right.
And it's 14-14.
Right.
Going towards the end of the game, we're getting ready to play. There's a timeout. They got the ball. They don't run it. They're their option all the way. And I'm telling our guys in the back, listen, just keep everything in front of you. We'll play for overtime. Now, right prior to that, when it's 14-14, after we tied it up, We are going in to score, to take control, for the win. This is in the middle of the fourth quarter. And we throw curl, and Jimmy Lotto gets hit high and low. We lose the ball. Otherwise, it would have been 1st and goal on the 8.
Wow.
But they get the ball back, and like I said, they're in a 3rd and long situation, and they're obviously going to have to throw the ball. I'm telling them, we're in zone, and I said, keep everything in front of you. And one of our guys his feet got tangled up. He goes down. Kid gets behind him, catches the ball. They get down to around 15, 16, end up kicking. They have the number 1 kicker in the state. They kick a 35, 40-yard field goal or something, and we lose 17-14.
Kicker. Always the kicker.
Yeah, the kicker. And ironically, I did at Chaney and at Mount. I did some kicking. I kicked off and kicked extra points and some field goals.
Didn't you have the record for most extra points?
Yeah, for a while, and then finally, it was too much of a problem putting the shoe on, and because I have to come out off a defense and change my shoe and
so you had the square toe. You were straight
on square toe. Yeah.
Okay.
So I finally told Coach Wable, I said, if we have a younger guy that can do this, let's do that. So that's what we did. But you're right, the kicker, and so many games that we ended up losing that way, and people were probably on the money saying, you need to get a kicker.
Probably should have practiced it. You never practiced it, right?
Right.
Never worked on it. No. So anything that you want to wrap up for today? I think we've hit a ton and a lot of good memories.
Yeah, and I apologize for names and some names that maybe I omit or I omitted. And even some recollections. I mean, some of these things happened a while ago, and maybe I didn't see it the way other people see it. So, if somebody challenges something, you may be right. I'm not claiming to be the final authority on some of this stuff, but I talk about what I know and what I believe I witnessed.
Yeah, and I look, it's a passion project. It's not something about promoting this guy or that guy or anybody. It's just taking a walk down memory lane, and so it's not intended in any way. And I think one of the things that's interesting to me, maybe as we kind of progress, is, it's easy to remember some of those big names. I'd be interested in some of your unsung heroes, some of the guys that maybe didn't get the recognition, but were your guys, were players, and that's always an intriguing part. And you having the opportunity to talk, the insight, that maybe that's a route we go. So sure. I think that's the neat thing about this, is it can go whatever direction we want it to, or it leads.
Yeah, and it'll give me time to go down memory lane and get some of those guys and bring their name up that have been kind of forgotten over the years.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.